Snowflakes swirled in the icy wind, coating the streets of a quiet mountain town in a thick, frozen blanket. The night was bitterly cold, the kind of cold that seeped into your bones and made even the toughest souls shiver. Most people were bundled, up inside their homes, safe and warm, unaware of the small shivering figure curled up near the edge of a deserted road. A dog, barely more than a bundle of wet fur, lay motionless against the snowbank, its ribs faintly rising and falling with every weak breath. As fate would have it, Keanu Reeves was passing through town that evening. He had always been a man of simple pleasures, someone who found peace in quiet places, away from the noise of Hollywood. Dressed in a thick coat and boots, he had stopped by a small roadside cafe to grab a coffee, not knowing that the night was about to take a turn he'd never forget. As he walked back to his car, the headlights of a passing truck briefly illuminated something on the side of the road, a dark shape against the snow. Most people wouldn't have noticed. Most people wouldn't have stopped. But Keanu did. His instincts kicked in, and without hesitation, he crossed the road, his boots crunching against the ice. Kneeling beside the small, trembling creature, Keanu's heart clenched. The dog was barely conscious, its fur matted with ice, eyes half closed as if it had given up. "Hey, buddy," Keanu murmured softly, reaching out a hand. The dog flinched at first, but was too weak to resist. Carefully, Keanu scooped the fragile body into his arms, feeling how light it was. Just skin and bones. He didn't think twice. He carried the dog back to his car, turning on the heat full blast. As he wrapped the animal in his own scarf, he couldn't help but wonder how long it had been out there, alone in the cold. Who had left it? Had it been abandoned? The thought made his jaw tighten. The dog whimpered faintly, its eyes barely staying open. Keanu knew he had to get it help, and fast. He pulled out his phone, searching for the nearest vet clinic. There was one about 20 minutes away, but with the icy roads, it wouldn't be an easy drive. Still, he didn't care. He wasn't about to let this little soul slip away. As he put the car in gear, something caught his attention. A faint glimmer, just underneath the dog's tangled fur. He squinted, reaching out to gently push some of the matted hair aside. That's when he saw it. Something small, metallic, and partially embedded in the dog's skin. His stomach twisted. What was that? A tag? A microchip? Or something else? Keanu's grip on the steering wheel tightened. Something told him this wasn't just a lost dog. This was something more, something he wasn't prepared for. And in that moment, as the snow continued to fall around him, Keanu had no idea that what he had just found would change everything. Keanu's fingers trembled slightly as he carefully brushed aside more of the dog's matted fur. The small metallic object glinted in the dim car light. It wasn't just a tag. It looked older, worn, and strangely out of place. His mind raced with possibilities, but there was no time to stop and analyze it now. The dog's breathing was faint, and every second counted. Gripping the wheel, Keanu pressed down on the gas, navigating the slick roads as carefully as he could. The small town faded into the background, swallowed by the night. The only sounds were the hum of the engine and the occasional whimper from the passenger seat. "Hang in there, buddy," Keanu whispered, glancing over at the fragile creature curled up beside him. The veterinarian's office was a small family-run clinic on the edge of town. Keanu barely had the car in park before he scooped the dog up and hurried inside. The warmth of the clinic hit him immediately, the scent of antiseptic and fresh linen in the air. A woman at the front desk looked up, startled by his urgent entrance. "He's freezing," Keanu said, his voice low but firm. I don't know how long he's been out there. The vet, a middle-aged man with kind eyes, appeared within moments, taking the dog from Keanu's arms. Let's get him checked out, he said, leading them into an exam room. Keanu watched as the dog was placed on a heated table, a blanket wrapped around its frail body. The vet worked quickly, checking for a pulse, feeling along its ribs. Malnourished, he muttered. Severe hypothermia. But he's a fighter. Keanu exhaled, some of the tension in his chest loosening. But his mind was still fixated on what he had seen. There's something on him, he said, stepping closer. Underneath the fur, some kind of metal. The vet frowned and gently parted the tangled hair near the dog's neck. His brows furrowed. That's not a tag, he murmured. It looks like a capsule of some sort. A strange chill ran through Keanu. A capsule, the vet nodded. I've never seen anything like this before. He reached for a pair of tweezers and carefully pried the object loose. It was small, about the size of a coin, with tiny etchings carved into the surface. The vet turned it over in his palm, his expression unreadable. Keanu leaned in. What is it? The vet shook his head. I don't know, but it doesn't look like something a dog should have on them naturally. Keanu felt a deep unease settle in his gut. Who had this dog belonged to? And why was something like this hidden beneath its fur? The vet carefully placed the capsule in a small dish. I can run some scans to see if there's anything else unusual, he offered. Keanu nodded, his mind racing. He had come across stray animals before, rescued dogs, helped injured ones. But this was different. He could feel it. While the vet worked, Keanu stepped out into the waiting area, running a hand through his hair. The snow outside had thickened, turning the world into a quiet, white haze. Something about this whole situation felt off. Like he had stumbled into something he wasn't meant to find. His phone buzzed in his pocket. A text from a friend who had seen him in town earlier. Everything okay? Weird night to be out? Keanu stared at the screen for a moment before typing back, Yeah, found a dog. Strange situation. A few minutes later, the vet called him back in. The dog was resting, hooked up to a small IV to help warm its body. But the vet's face was serious. I did an X-ray, he said. And there's something else. Keanu's heart pounded. Something else? The vet turned the screen towards him. The X-ray showed the dog's tiny frame and something embedded deep inside. A small unidentifiable object. Keanu swallowed hard. That's not normal, is it? The vet shook his head. No. And I don't think this was an accident. The weight of the words settled between them, thick as the winter air outside. Keanu looked at the sleeping dog, its small chest rising and falling. With each breath, someone had put something inside this animal. Someone had left it out in the snow to die. And now, Keanu had found it. Whatever this was, it wasn't over. It was just beginning. Keanu stared at the X-ray, his mind racing. There it was. Something small, unnatural, hidden deep inside the dog's frail body. The realization sent a chill through him. Someone had done this on purpose. Someone had used this helpless animal for something it was never meant to carry. The vet's voice was calm but firm. Whatever this is, it's not safe to leave it in there. It could be tracking technology, a tiny data chip, or something worse. He hesitated before adding, I think we should remove it. Keanu nodded without hesitation. Do it. The next hour felt like an eternity. Keanu paced the small waiting room, his thoughts a storm of questions with no answers. Why this dog? Who had done this? And had they realized yet that the dog was missing? Finally, the vet emerged, holding a small surgical tray. In the center, next to a few bloodied gauze pads, was the object. It was a tiny black capsule, no bigger than a button, but sleek and unfamiliar, almost like something out of a spy movie. Keanu leaned in. "What is that?" The vet sighed. "It's sealed tight. I don't want to tamper with it. But whatever it is, it was meant to stay hidden." Keanu's gut told him the same thing. Whoever put this inside the dog never intended for anyone to find it. He carefully picked up the tiny device, turning it in his fingers. There were no markings, no obvious openings, just a smooth dark surface that felt oddly heavy for its size. Just then, his phone buzzed. Another text, this time from an unknown number. "You shouldn't have taken it." Keanu's heart skipped a beat. His eyes flicked up to the vet, then to the sleeping dog on the table. Someone knew. Someone was watching. A deep breath steadied him. He had been in intense situations before, but this was different. This wasn't a movie set. This was real. "Whoever they are," Keanu said, slipping the capsule into his pocket. "They're not getting this back." The vet gave him a wary look. "Be careful, Keanu. You have no idea what you're caught up in." Keanu glanced at the dog, still weak, but breathing steadily. If he hadn't stopped that night, if he hadn't picked the little guy up, no one would have ever known. And maybe that was the whole point. With a quiet determination, Keanu scooped the dog back into his arms. "Let's get out of here, buddy." As he stepped outside, the snow had slowed, leaving the streets silent. His car sat under a thin layer of frost, untouched, but something felt different now. The air was heavier, the night darker. He didn't know who was watching. He didn't know what he had just uncovered, but one thing was certain. This little dog wasn't just a stray, and neither of them was alone anymore.